Right. Okay, ladies. So, welcome to Black Women Worldwide's Saturday brunch, where we are minding her Black business. This is an opportunity for us to share this space with one another. We like to highlight a sister who is in business or a sister who is managing her career, and she doesn't typically get this type of acknowledgement or representation in the spaces that she works in. So we take this opportunity to communicate with one another, to share, to kick it, and to just glean from one another and get ideas. So I'm super grateful for this space, and I'm glad to have all of you here with us today. So thank you for joining us this Saturday. All right, we want to take an opportunity to look at our blueprint, our footprint. And it is amazing to me because in our infancy, we have been able to find ourselves in over 99 cities worldwide. And I think that's absolutely phenomenal. I think that it is getting ready to show us what we can do in a way that we've never seen it before. So we're super excited. And I'm going to just share the places where we now have a footprint. We are hailing from Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Illinois, Kansas, Maryland, Michigan, Missouri, and newly added New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. We are represented in the United States of America, Canada, Nigeria, the UAE, Brazil, South Africa, UK, Barbados, and Ghana. So we are excited. We are elated. I think about what we are going to do with this work, and I know that I cannot even imagine where going to go. So at this time, I would like for our founders, Brittany Bogan and Kyra Lee, to please come off of mute and just give us a brief introduction of who you are.
Go ahead, Kyra.
Good morning, ladies. We are the two co-founders of Blvck Womxn Worldwide. I am hailing from San Pedro, Long Beach area in California currently, but I am definitely a Detroit girl for most of my life. I'm a painter by trade and have definitely done work in the for-profit and nonprofit spaces, helping along the way. But me and Brittany connected on this project because of our passion for women, Black women specifically, and wanting to be the change that we need in the world today, and making sure that that representation does take place in a way that is both ethical, responsible, and feels good as we're moving around. So that's me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany. I am a singer and artist, but I am from the for-profit space, hailing from that good old TSU. So shout out to my fellow Tiger on the call today. I was happy to see that. We're always excited to meet family. You know what I'm saying? That good old blue and white and silver, honey. Yes. So I'm so happy to have all you ladies today, to see your faces, to collect your energy. As Kyra said, we are passionate about women. We're passionate about Black women specifically, globally, and we just want to see you all thrive and be the best you can be in whatever space you choose.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, ladies. And again, just so grateful for our founders. And I, don't want you guys to ever think for a second that we are not in total appreciation of the work that you guys are doing 24/7. We recognize it, we acknowledge it, we love you, and we all want to work together and just to support in every way that we can. So we're coming to the point of this brunch where we are getting ready to highlight a phenomenal young woman. When I read her bio, I just got excited because she is actually doing some of the things that I aspire to do, the young woman, and decided to go in a different direction. So I'm super excited about this conversation, and I am going to read her bio piece by piece because I don't want to miss a thing. So Lisa, I want to introduce to you Sarah Sulewski. She is a 23-year-old proud HBC graduate from Tennessee State University with a bachelor's degree in communication studies with a concentration in mass communication and journalism. She is a self-proclaimed activist, coach, actress, and TV radio personality. Sarah was a former competitive speaker and captain of the 2020 highly decorated Tennessee State speech and debate team. She has won numerous titles, including Best Speaker at the CCCFA State Championship in 2018, quarterfinalist in poetry interpretation, semifinalist in dual interpretation at the AFA National Tournament, and Best Speaker at the Tennessee State Championship in 2019, just to name a few. Aside from competing in speech and debate, Sarah is also a very accomplished speaker and debate coach for the Santa Ana Unified School District. In addition, Sarah is the host of the radio show Activists of Today, where she's provided a platform to shine light on the activists who are committed to being the change they want to see in the world. Sarah is a proud Black queer woman of faith who is dedicated to fighting for justice for all oppressed people, and she will do it by any means necessary. So, Sarah, if you can come off your mic, we want to chat. We want to hear what you got to share, and we'll just ask you a couple questions just to get this conversation going. So, welcome to the brunch, Sarah.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm honored to be on this platform tonight and today, and talk to you guys. This is going to be really, really amazing.
How did you start your activism journey? How did it begin?
Yeah, so for me, always have kind of had that social justice warrior spirit, within me. But really getting into the activity of speech and debate really kickstarted a lot of my advocacy. And so a lot of people don't understand what speech and debate is. And that's fine, because that's okay. You have to really, it's one of those things you have to see to really truly understand. But I do a lot of events. I'm more on the speech side of speech and debate that involve interpretation, which is in my bio, and also platform speaking, so persuasion, informative speeches. But within the realm of interpretation, I tell stories, right, of other people that have already been written. And so in that, I advocate for a lot of the communities I'm a part of. So the Black community, the LGBTQIA community, for women, all women. And so I really found myself in doing that research, finding, my little lane in advocacy work, and also just boosting my activism. So for the past 4 years, that's what I've done. Not only was I competing in that activity, but I was coaching the activity for elementary through high school kids as well, back here in my hometown. So really just got all of the sparks flying in that lane for me. And after I graduated, which I'm a recent graduate, like we said in the bio, so just finished from TSU, which was such an experience of a lifetime, coming back and seeing this movement reignited yet again. I really felt like it was time for me to take all of those skills that I've honed and push my activism even further, which is what I've really jumped into now with the work that I do with Orange County Protest Community Coalition, and then just continuing my show as well.
We were talking before the call, and this whole pandemic just brought forth for us something that none of us anticipated. So how do you see this experience now? How do you see your work elevating with everything changing the way it is? And it seems like everybody is just kind of paying attention now. So what are some of the things that you see yourself doing, in the coming months that's going to really kind of boost your platform?
Yeah, so for me, this this pandemic has changed everything. And in some ways, it has been a good thing. People have more time to sit and to really listen to what's going on around them. And they're really, with shows that are virtual, they really have time to look at their phones, and they're kind of glued to their phone to tune in to things that they maybe missed before. And so for me, I started this show, Activists of Today, before this pandemic, just because I wanted to jump more into activism myself, and what better way than to learn from those who are already doing it. And so I learned and invited people who were already being the change that they wished to see in the world. I learned from them, and I've applied that to my own activism in my own life. So, within these coming months, as I'm growing my activism, I'm really trying to highlight the people that I'm coming into contact with to boost them. My show isn't really about me. Like I try to, kind of take myself out of it, but I am really trying to highlight those who are doing the work, and people that everyone needs to know. One of the biggest things I'm always telling everyone when it comes to advocacy and activism related work is know who your leaders are. And so that's the goal of my show, is to get people to understand these are the leaders who are doing the work. These are the people you need to follow in order for us to continue to move forward. So I'm really just wanting to highlight those that I'm coming into contact with as I get more involved in activism work. So.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think about just the young girls in Black Women Worldwide. I'm really trying to wrap my mind around, because I've been an educator for so long, and there's so much wealth and so much knowledge that we've created just in this space here. So I think about women who are your age, and I think about how do we make those meaningful connections, so that we can be an asset to you, to your platform, to your audience. And I wanted to know if you can just give us a couple of ideas of some things that you think that we can do to support your efforts as women who maybe have seen a little bit more or done a little bit more, but certainly we don't know it all. So if you could just maybe give us some insight on some ways that we can help.
Yeah, I think for one, first and foremost, what you guys are doing right now is amazing. Like, we've been able to make this connection already. I mean, I'm here, and that connection started really through social media, finding each other on Instagram and social platforms. And that in itself is great because I do what I do, without care of being recognized, right? Like, I don't need the recognition, but getting the recognition makes me feel like I've been doing for a while now. Like, people are seeing this and they think it's great. That already is a boost of confidence for young women who are really trying to break into whatever field it is that they're going into. So that in itself is already amazing. I think continue to seek out women who maybe are a little bit more like non-conventional or who don't always get the spotlight. So not just women who necessarily, I want to say, look like women. I think definitely there are so many non-binary and trans and femmes women that need recognition. So I will always spit that. There's so many women and femmes that have been doing work and they don't get highlighted enough.
Yes.
Because they don't fit the traditional mold. And so I always try to use the privilege that I have to recognize, that right there. So it's great that I'm here, but I want those who don't always get the spotlight to go ahead and come through. So I think more movement and recognition in that area for those women and femmes would be amazing, because they're doing a lot of the same work that I'm doing and that other people get recognized for. So I think that is my main thing, is seek those women and femmes out.
Absolutely. Woo, I love it. Thank you. Thank you. If anybody else has any questions for Sarah, please jump in. Just totally honored to have you here, Sarah. And just to think about, what you just said, we have to be courageous, and we have to, as we're working on, we have to reimagine how we see ourselves, period. You know what I mean? It's truly time to break away from these traditional platforms and trying to tell people how they be identified. So I think that is wonderful. And I think that's something that I admire about the next generation, my daughter included. They're not afraid to be authentic. And I think that's phenomenal. So yeah, anything else you want to share with us? Something that you think we should know?
I've kind of already said it, that, the things that I do, whether it's my show, Activists of Today, or whether it's just my activism aligned with my nonprofit that I'm involved in, I don't do the work, like I said, that I do, for any sort of recognition. I really do the work that I do to inspire other people. Every time I step on any sort of platform, I recognize, who I am and what I look like and the privileges that I have in order to, for one, be transparent. I really value transparency. So, I am a light-skinned, biracial, queer, but I'm bisexual. There's privilege in that as well, woman. And so I always try to acknowledge my identities, because everything that I say, I'm echoing those who came before me and those who are not the easy palatable version of who I am. The darker skinned Black women, the trans women and femmes that have already been saying everything that I say, right? And so that's something that I always try to recognize. And like I said, it's in my bio that I will fight for all oppressed and, in addition, colonized peoples by any means necessary. So anytime you guys ever look at my work, that's the intention. And when I step forward to speak and get messages out, it's to inspire those who also fit into, an identities such as mine, or communities that I am a part of. And so that is really my little spiel about myself. And anytime you see me aligned with any sort of work, that's really what I try to do. So yeah, I think that's just the little bit I want to get out there, so people really understand that everything that I do comes from a genuine place. That's the goal. So.
That's
Just
amazing,
cannot
Sarah.
even.
That's
That's
amazing.
powerful.
And I was going to ask you, in operating in the activist space, there are always people who are in opposition with one another. Even though we look the same and we may be going through the same struggles, we don't all have the same value systems. We don't all think the same about how things should go. A big question for me that I think some people are asking at this point is, what do you think that we can do, and how do you think that we could go about bringing people to the table who are in opposition with one another so that they can find common ground in order for us to achieve this very important goal that we have? For example, we know that the Black church is huge in our community, whether no matter what we feel about it. There's some people that hold it very close to their hearts. And then our trans community, our LGBTQ community is oftentimes in great opposition with that particular entity. But we all inside of that are Black people being oppressed, being hurt, being upset. And a big part of our healing is going to be bringing those parties that feel differently about things together in order to achieve this common goal. What do you think we can do to forward that?
I think first and foremost, check your heart and your mind before you step into those spaces, right? So like if you are a person of faith, right? You know, you come from the Black church and you want to come to a conversation, are you coming to listen? Or are you coming to be heard, right? And then and wherever you're coming from, like, are you really coming from a place of wanting to understand? And if you check your mind and you check your heart, you have to understand what your goals are, trying to move forward all people within your community, right? And so if you know, okay, you know what, I believe in God, and this community, you know, has been rejected by a lot of people who share, you know, the beliefs that I share. Am I coming from a place of wanting to understand and want to figure out how to bring them in? How can we exist in a space together and fight for one another? And I think when you come with the right intentions, when you come with wanting to unify everybody, the conversation might be difficult, but at the end, we're going to reach a common goal because we want the best for everyone. But there's a lot of people who don't actually, I'm not going to say haven't, who don't check their mind and they don't check their heart before they enter conversations because they're really just trying to be heard. They don't come from a place of wanting to be understood or understand others. And that's the very first thing. Before you enter conversations, don't come trying to be combative or necessarily defensive, especially if you're coming from a place of privilege, right? If you're coming from a place of privilege where you don't have to deal with so many different opposing forces, then you need to come from a place of understanding first and foremost. That way you're not seen as like a weapon to these people. If you're, you know, faith-based and you're coming to speak to trans folks who you know haven't been welcomed by the faith community or, you know, by the church, the Black church in general, then you have to come right, come correct, so they feel welcome, so they feel like it's an actual conversation, not an argument, not a place where they have to defend their identities, you know?
Yeah, and as activists, how are we relaying those messages to be able to do that, right? To have these people come in checking their hearts and minds. How do we relate to them, you know, hey, before you come to this conversation, this is what needs to take place, and do it in such a way that they don't feel offended or feel defensive, and also that they're willing to explain to their constituency, hey, we can't do this like this anymore. That's the biggest thing. We're trying to get people to understand that the status quo has to change. How do we get them to hear us, to receive us, to understand your messaging and listen to your platform and say, you know what, I understand what I believe, I understand my different oppositions, or I understand how I've been hurt or how someone has torn me down, but I have to release this in order for us to fix it. That's the part of the conversation, actually getting to that point where everyone's thinking that way, that I think we're all trying to figure out the solution for. How in your opinion, what do you think we can do to get those things started?
I think that when we say, you know, so since this movement started, we're telling everybody, educate yourself, but are we also telling Black folks to educate themselves? Like, are we saying that we still need education? Because I feel like we're telling everybody else, go educate, go read or whatever, but that's also for us, right? And so you have to be open to digesting new information. And so I feel like we have to take the messages that we've been giving everybody else and apply them to ourselves, right? So be willing to be met with information that maybe you didn't know about. And I think it starts there. It starts with the wanting to know different or wanting to know more, whether it's agreeing with, you know, what you've already held as your ideals before or not. And I think it's really going to start with a little bit of education before you enter those spaces. So you kind of evaluate where you are, and then maybe where your opposing side, or maybe the information that you don't know lies. And I think we can move forward after that. But it's a want. You have to want it. You have to want to do better for your people. And I think what's amazing about many of the activists and organizers, whether they say they're organizers or not, the energy that's there is that we all want to do better for ourselves and for everybody else. And if everyone can come from that place, that's where we really get some amazing work done.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a big conversation around activism lately has been, well, what does this activism do? What does all this marching do? How does it affect real change? What about the actual systematic change? Now, this is not me. I'm just saying we know this is a part of the conversation. Can you kind of explain to people what activism actually sparks and how it can actually spark real systematic change?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's so interesting because, when we protest in the street, and I've been protesting in the street for the past, several months and whatnot. People are like, oh, they're disrupting traffic. It's like, well, protests are meant to disrupt your normal life. Like, we're meant to get in there and be like, hello, like, you're gonna see me. I don't care if you can't get to Starbucks and you can't get to work. I'm here. That's the point. For one, to cause good trouble, right? To go ahead and quote John Lewis there, to get in good trouble, which is for one, recognition, right? To know that we're not going anywhere. That's to let you know that the people are going to be heard by any means necessary. We are going to stop traffic to get you to see us, and we're going to make our demands, right? Because honestly, a lot of people won't hear us otherwise. And especially like outside of Orange County, in a lot of areas where protests have been met with a lot of violence from the police, they don't hear you otherwise. You can go and sit sometimes in your city council meetings, and they're not going to hear you until you're in the streets, until you're making your demands. And that works in a lot of areas. And so that's one part of protesting and activism work. But activism comes in so many different forms. And here in Orange County, we're really trying to do a lot of that work. Not only are we in the streets, but we're at our Board of Supervisors meetings. We're at the city council meetings. We're involved in mutual aid programs with feeding the houseless, or trying to find homing for the houseless. We're involved in so many different aspects. We're coming really from every angle. So activism doesn't look one way. There's so many different ways that you can get involved. But I will say, being disruptive, being in the streets, that's one of the main parts of it. And to critique activism, to say that, that part isn't necessary or you shouldn't do that part, liberation is going to manifest itself in whatever way it needs to, in whatever, what by any means necessary. And so I think that we have to understand that in order to fight for liberation, that's going to come across in whatever way we see fit at that moment in time.
I wanted to circle back to your organization, Sarah. Can you give us the name again, please?
Yes, so I sit on the founding board for an organization and soon to be nonprofit, Orange County Protest Community Coalition. Mm-hmm. So we are a newly formed organization. We're working to become a nonprofit right now, but we're doing a lot of work for the BIPOC communities in Orange County, really trying to come, like I said before, and from every area. Protest is not just marching or being in the streets. For us, protest manifests itself in many different forms, and we're trying to do all of those in order to better BIPOC communities within Orange County.
And for those that aren't familiar with that term, can you explain what BIPOC means, please?
Yes, so Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And so the reason why I don't always use this term, and I'm also careful because I think that when you mean Black, say Black. If you mean Indigenous, say Indigenous, right? But a way to kind of unite all of us when we're referring to all of us. BIPOC was coined after the term POC. I know a lot of people have heard people of color, but BIPOC centers Black and Indigenous people, meaning that our struggles, reinforce the ways that POC, receive discrimination and whatnot. A lot of that is shaped by Black and Indigenous people. So they put us first because we kind of shape the way that trickles down to other people of color. And so, BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So that includes Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander in that POC bubble as well.
One of the things I love about your message personally is the fact that you're so responsible in navigating the differences in intersections, how the struggles don't always show up in the same way, depending on the conversation. So, what I wanted to ask is coming from an activist space and being so passionate about speaking to the intersections that you represent, and also being very kind and generous in pushing those that you don't to the forefront of conversation also. When you are interacting with Black folk, when you are activating in the Black space with your labels, what are some of the things that you experience that we might not be able to guess at?
You know what's interesting? For me personally, I mean, I think it's for a lot of people who are biracial, I feel like sometimes they feel like they can't necessarily like speak to the Black community, or it's uncomfortable sometimes. And I know that I hear that and I understand. But phenotypically, like my whole life, I mean, I've been recognized as a Black woman. So to me, that's not always a huge issue for me. It maybe in the beginning, I was a little nervous, but I got to a place where I understand my identity and that nobody can take away my identity. And so I have become very proud in who I am. And so when speaking to the Black community, I get a lot of positive feedback. First and foremost, because I recognize who I am and I know exactly who I am. And I always say that, like, I make it a point. I'm like, first of all, I know what I look like. I know I'm this palatable version of all of my different identities. And I think transparency goes a huge way, like a long, huge way when you're speaking to any crowd, understanding who you are and then who you're speaking to. That's the biggest mistake that people make when they're addressing audiences. They don't know who their audience is, and they also don't know who they are. And when you don't know who you are and you don't know who your audience is, you're kind of just putting out messages, right? And so the biggest thing that I pride myself on is that I'm extremely transparent. And so because of that, I'm usually met with a lot of praise. And if I'm not met with praise, I don't take that personally, because I usually understand where it comes from, like where any opposition might come from somebody who looks like me saying some messages. If people don't like that, I understand that, and I receive a little bit of that. I'm like, okay, that's all right. I don't take things personally, because why should I? Like, why should I? What's the point? What's the point in that? If you don't like it, that's okay. You're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to disagree. You're allowed to be like, okay, we need somebody else, who looks a little bit different, going up there and get those messages out. I'm like, good, get her, bring her. And I think people respond really well to that. So I owe that to, a lot of people in my life who influence me to always be authentic and transparent.
I love it. One of the ingredients that we're navigating in this linguist exercise that we're entering into is the way that we spell Black and women is intentional. Yes. And the V was added to dismiss any confusion about what type of Black we're talking about. If we must go there, the answer is all. Yeah. So if the word that we have is not being used in the way that reflects our truth, we can create another one because we're good like that. So Black with a V is supposed to create that intersection boldly, that as long as you identify as part of this family, it should not be further discussion. We should check that box and keep moving. And I think that's important. And when we start talking about folks that may come from versions of Black or intersections of Black that have question marks historically, I think it's important for them to hear what you just said, that it's really on you, boo. If you show up Black, we have you. If you show up Black, we have you. If you show up multiracial, we have you also. It's really on you to tell us what your story is and for us to receive and move on to the next thing at the end of the day. So I love that about you. The other question that I wanted to ask is, inside of OC, there's a unique set of challenges when we talk about activism. OC is a different landscape than some of the neighboring counties. Can you tell us a little bit about what that feels like?
Yeah, so it's so crazy. And I'd say this to people, like, growing up in Orange County, I knew it was racist, right? But like, there wasn't a lot of us, so I'm looking around, I'm like, do y'all see all this, right? And now, I'm 23 years old, and this movement is really happening out here. And Orange County has been exposed for a lot of injustices and for a lot of its racism all over. Like, they've been trending on Twitter for a lot of the craziness that's going on out here. And I'm like, finally everybody's seeing what I've been talking about my whole life, you know, and that's kind of crazy because I'm like, I've been saying that this place is racist, but nobody, I feel like a lot of people didn't affirm that for me, you know? And so now I'm like, wow, people are really starting to see like really what's been going on in Orange County. And, you know, what's interesting about Orange County is in the area that I'm in specifically. So I'm in, you know, Westminster, Fountain Valley, Huntington Beach area. Mostly is made up of like white and Asian people, right? That's mostly it. And then it's like Latinx and Black people are like this small little corner over here. That's kind of like where we exist. And so for me, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me growing up. So I wasn't really immersed into the Black community, and I experienced a lot of racism growing up here, just microaggressions and you know, stereotypes and generalizations about Black people or just people of color who are brown, because I know a lot of Asian people do identify as people of color now, but like the darker skin, you know, brown and Black people, we experience a lot of racism growing up here. And so I will say with this movement being reactivated, it's really beautiful to see the people of Orange County come together and to also see people who I didn't expect out here fighting for Black lives and for brown lives and for, you know, Black liberation. That has been really, really amazing. I've had some people who I've had not support me, people who I thought were going to be there, and that's come out too. So I've dealt with a lot of pain, kind of just being like, okay, I guess I'm losing some friends and some family as well. You know, I'm definitely losing some people, and that's fine because I'll snip real quick now that I'm at my age. But I've also seen a lot of beautiful unity in this area, and it's about time. It's really about time, and that's how I feel about that.
I love that. For those that are not from the area, it is the equivalent of for our Michigan folks, we have places like Dearborn that are heavily Middle Eastern. We have places like Southwest that are heavily Latinx. We're very segmented in that way. So for Orange County, it's very interesting because you guys are so diverse on paper, but segregated in that very same way. Yep. Like I ask people and they're like, oh no, there's Black people here. We don't know how to find each other, but there's Black people here.
Yes.
And we see them.
Yes.
Right?
We're scattered. We're like, I think she's like over there, but like I don't
just
know.
Around the corner. I saw her. I saw the fro. I saw the curls. They were there. I don't know where she is now though.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. That's the perfect way to describe it.
Yep. I just saw you, sis. Wait, and then you turn and it's like she's gone. So it's a very interesting dynamic for so many of you to be so active and vocal and powerful, but still needing that network and that connection established. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight, one is your work with OC Community Coalition and how wonderful you all have been at building network, building community, working with other women. You guys have been at the forefront of all of that. So I just wanted to salute you for that because we are all about that. And it's been amazing working with you all, like amazing, inspiring.
Thank you so much. That's really what we're really trying to unite all of us, and we work with so many different people. Like we're all about collaborating with different organizations and really trying to get the message out there, but also that Orange County, for one, we exist here in Orange County, you know, BIPOC communities and members, we exist out here and we're actually unified, contrary to like, you know, popular belief. We're unified and we want to work with one another in order to gain liberation for all of us. And we're planning to continue that moving forward for as long as we can.
I love it. For our listeners that will be recorded or listening to this recording later, can we have your hashtags and the way to locate you?
Yeah, me personally or the...
You and your organization.
Yes, okay, cool. You can definitely find me on Instagram at Sarah, just how it's spelled with an H, _ Sulewski, SULEWSKI. And you can find OC Protest at OC Protest. We also have a website, ocprotest.org, with a lot of great tabs. We have tabs that highlight other organizations within Orange County that you can go ahead and get in contact with, as well as educational resources and how to donate to not only us, but the other orgs that are doing the work within OC.
Beautiful, beautiful. So at this point in the call, we definitely take a leap because we want to make sure that it is clear why we are here and why we are highlighting women like Sarah Sulewski and others that are doing the same and very important work. So our mission as Black Women Worldwide is a charitable nonprofit startup that was established for the education, advancement, and mentorship, as well as wellness and financial success of Black women in every walk of life. We recognize COVID-19 as the largest disruptor to the status quo in our lifetime. So during this global pandemic, a team of brilliant Black women analyzed the existing realities of millions of Black women across the globe. And what we found is that our pain and our frustrations are not isolated. So using a global lens, we seek to develop the technology necessary to make protecting and supporting all Black women in our venture sustainable. The approach that we use is tech and teamwork to create the first global database of this kind for situations like Michigan and Orange County and wherever you may be. Connecting is the missing piece. It's the gap to getting the power going and the networks created. So we connect individual Black women and their children with solutions that are also powered by Black women using our mobile phone. We intend to break barriers for Black women-owned brands and businesses through education, capacity building, community, and connection. We build bridges that repurpose the $1 trillion annual Black spend for the purpose of personal and professional development of Black women worldwide. And so at the end of each of these calls, what we ask to those that are here today is one, to thank you for joining us, and two, to get involved. We do have a website where we will be highlighting all of our members that have organizations, brands, and businesses that are available so that you all can connect with one another. If you have not become a member and registered at www.black with a V, BLVCK, women, WOMXN worldwide.org. We ask you to register today. These are nonprofit efforts, so if you would like to donate, we would appreciate that as well so that we can keep this work going. But most importantly, we want you to get involved. We want you to seek and connect with other Black women on purpose, and we want you to tell our story. Just like Sarah and some of the other folks that we've brought on the show, Lene was on last week's recording. We definitely want to make sure that women are aware of other women doing this work so that we can continue to build and move with velocity. The entire point of Black Women Worldwide is to accelerate Black women in motion, and we intend to keep doing that. Does anybody else have any questions for Sarah?
Sarah, I do have one last question because I had an interesting experience on TSU's campus. It was my first time actually being immersed with Black people. I mean, I grew up in Detroit, but my experience was different from that of my neighbors. My parents made it possible for me to go to public school, so I got left out of the environment of being able to go to school with the same people from kindergarten and up, and then moving into this larger space. I wasn't always sure how to relate or how to understand some of the things that my peers were going through, but the HBCU made me feel so at home. And I know sometimes as a biracial person in different spaces, because my family is biracial, though I don't present that way, it can feel like you're always trying to prove your Blackness or trying to fit into a certain thing. How was your experience being immersed with all of these different variations of Black, and also, developing, understanding your identity within that frame?
Yeah, I shared that experience with you. So also it's great to have a fellow Tiger on. When you said, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, go TSU. But I definitely share that same experience as you. I was not immersed in the Black community growing up, and then going to an HBCU. For one, I knew it was something I had to do. I was like, okay, this is definitely it. I need to go ahead and make this leap. And what's interesting, and I'll share this a little, I knew this was going to come up today. I don't know how I knew this was going to come up. So there, the oratorical contest that kicks off homecoming, right? And so
Yeah.
the speech team always participates in it. But my first year when I transferred, I was supposed to speak, right? This has never, ever, ever happened to me, but I left. I got up, left, felt like I couldn't do it, right? And honestly, if we're gonna get to why that happened, I couldn't figure out. I'm like, I have been speaking for years. Like, what is this? And for one, I think I got nervous just in general being at a completely new space. It's only homecoming. We're barely there. It's kind of the beginning of the year. And then two, I never really spoke at large in front of just my community, just Black people. So I think overwhelming fear happened, right? But something really beautiful happened to me after that. I decided to, I'm like, okay, cool, that happened. And I worked really hard to find it within myself that I know exactly who I am and I know who I advocate for. And I decided after that, like, I wasn't going to let anyone else influence how I see myself. And the next year, I won. I won the whole thing.
Oh, girl.
I won the whole thing. And because I built myself up so high. I was like, you know what? I know exactly who I am. I can't believe I would let fear get in and question me about who I am. And so I really had to get within myself and talk to myself about who I saw myself as and where my heart is in when I do all the work that I do. And at the end of the day, I'm a Black woman. I advocate for Black people, and that is what it is, right? And so being confident in my identity. But I've been there. I've had to get through the hill, and I climbed the hill, and I made it up there. So yes, I've been through that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something that my mother told me. I would call home and I'd be like, Mom, like, it's not working. I have 5 brothers. Y'all got me in a dorm full of women. I don't understand them. The girls crying on the floor. And then they're like, I was in Wilson and I'm like, can I get transferred to Watson, please? I don't understand this. But one thing she told me about my identity, about the way I grew up, about what I thought about myself as a Black woman in the space, never apologize and never explain. You don't have to do that. You don't have to explain away why you're different. You don't have to explain away why you think differently. And don't apologize for being you. You go in there, you be you, and let them shine around you. You know what I mean? Let them fill in the gaps around you, honey, because they're in your space. You're not in theirs. And that is something that we forget to tell ourselves. In any space you walk into, it is now yours. It is now yours to own. And so I appreciate your transparency. It's something that we don't often talk about, how we can be even uncomfortable inside of our own communities or feel like we're not able to speak for our own communities sometimes. So thank you so much for that transparency. Anyone else? Does anyone else have any questions for Sarah? You better use her while she's here. She's lovely and she's willing.
Oh yes. We beat ourselves up before the world does. That's one thing I always tell people. We beat ourselves up before the world does, especially when you come from so many different identities. Like, I mean, being biracial, being bisexual, I sit here, I'm like, okay, because my friends and I joke, it's like, am I really gay or do I really, and you have those conversations with yourself inside your head and we don't always talk about it out loud, but those are really real things. And I do want to say for anyone who's listening and, they're like, okay, it's easy to say, be confident in your identity. You might have to fail in order to get it. I had to fail in order to get it, to truly get it. I had to really fail at it and have that experience where I ran from speaking, which I never thought I would ever do, in order to truly understand. So failure is something that you should be wanting to do. And if you fail, that's okay. You're one step closer to truly understanding who you are.
Absolutely. Beautiful, Sarah. Thank you so much.
I think on that note, you've given us enough to chew on until next time. Sarah will be on our Reimagine Liberty panel in Santa Ana on Sunday, August 23rd at 2:30 p.m. We are having a discussion on this exact topic, how to responsibly and lovingly address and acknowledge all of the intersections of Blackness that make up this family, because we are all ours. We are all ours. So I thank you for your time today. I thank Erica for doing an amazing job with the hosting and interviewing on this conversation, as well as Brittany. Thank you so much for the questions and all of the input. The energy today has been amazing. And we will see you guys next week at the same time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We thank you, ladies, and have
Yes, thank you. Pleasure to meet you, Sarah. Be well.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Happy Saturday.
Bye-bye.